The bell above the door jingled as Mark stepped into the barbershop, a small, cozy place tucked into the corner of a busy street. It smelled of shaving cream, aftershave, and freshly cut hair. The hum of clippers filled the air, blending with the murmur of quiet conversation. The barbershop was a community space, where people came not just for a haircut, but for a moment of camaraderie and belonging. But today, the atmosphere shifted the moment he walked in. Mark, a middle-aged white man dressed in a tailored suit, barely acknowledged the barbers before sitting down in one of the chairs. He checked his watch, his expression one of impatience, as if he had something far more important to do than be here. Jamal, the barber closest to him, was a young black man in his late 20s, his hair neatly braided and his hands skilled from years of cutting hair. He had seen all types of customers, kind ones, quiet ones, rude ones, but the look in Mark's eyes unsettled him. It was that familiar gaze, one that spoke of something unspoken, yet deeply felt. "Good afternoon, sir," Jamal greeted, keeping his voice even. "What can I do for you today?" Mark barely looked at him. "Just a simple cut. Keep it short, neat, nothing fancy." Jamal nodded and gestured for him to sit comfortably. As he reached for the clippers, he noticed the way Mark kept his eyes fixed on his reflection in the mirror, as though monitoring every move. "You sure you know what you're doing?" Mark asked suddenly, his tone sharp. Jamal paused, surprised. "Yes, sir. Been cutting hair for years. You're in good hands." Mark snorted. "We'll see." The words were laced with something deeper, something bitter, something distrustful. The other barbers in the shop exchanged glances, but said nothing. The tension was palpable, hanging thick in the air like the scent of aftershave. Jamal resumed his work, moving with precision. He prided himself on his craft, and he wasn't about to let a rude customer shake his confidence. But as he worked, Mark continued to make comments. "Do it properly," Mark muttered. "I don't want to walk out of here looking like a thug." Jamal stiffened. He set the clippers down for a moment and looked at Mark through the mirror. Their eyes met, and for a brief second, the air felt heavier than before. He knew what Mark was implying, and so did everyone else in the shop. "Sir, I assure you, I take my work seriously," Jamal said carefully, forcing himself to stay professional. Mark gave a low chuckle. "I'm just saying. You know how it is. Some places aren't reputable." The words stung, not just for Jamal, but for everyone in the shop. He could feel his colleagues watching, waiting to see how he would handle it. He took a breath and continued cutting, focusing on the rhythm of his hands rather than the weight of Mark's words. Silence stretched between them, thick with unspoken thoughts. "You from around here?" Mark asked after a while. Jamal hesitated before answering. "Born and raised," Mark scoffed. "Surprised you stuck around. Places like this, well, they don't always offer a lot of opportunities." Jamal clenched his jaw. "I love my community, and I love my job." Mark smirked. "That's nice, I suppose. Just don't get too comfortable." Jamal's grip on the clippers tightened. He had dealt with men like Mark before. Men who didn't say outright what they felt, but made sure you understood. Men who saw his skin before his skill, his profession before his passion. One of the other barbers, an older man named Ronnie, finally spoke up. "You got a problem, man?" Mark turned slightly, raising an eyebrow. "I'm just making conversation." Ronnie crossed his arms. "No, you're not. You're being disrespectful." Mark held Ronnie's gaze for a moment before turning back to the mirror, his smirk still in place, but his eyes less confident. Jamal finished the cut in silence. When he was done, he brushed the stray hairs from Mark's neck and removed the cape. "That'll be $20, he said evenly. Mark stood, looking at his reflection critically before finally nodding. Not bad. He reached into his wallet and pulled out a crisp 20. He held it out, but just before Jamal could take it, he let it drop to the floor. A hush fell over the shop. Jamal stared at the bill lying between them, then slowly bent down to pick it up. He refused to let Mark see any anger, any frustration. He straightened, folded the bill, and placed it in the register. Mark smirked again, adjusted his suit, and walked toward the door. But before he could leave, Ronnie called out, "Hey!" Mark paused, turning slightly. "You come back here," Ronnie said, his voice steady. "You better come with respect. Or don't come at all." Mark chuckled, as if amused by the idea. Then, without another word, he walked out. The door swung shut behind him, and for a long moment, no one spoke. Then, one of the younger barbers let out a low whistle. "Man, some people never change." Jamal sighed and shook his head. "Yeah, but that's on them, not us." Ronnie clapped a hand on Jamal's shoulder. "You handled that well, son. Don't ever let them shake you." Jamal gave a small nod. He had faced worse, and he would likely face it again. But he wasn't about to let one bitter man take away his pride in his craft, his love for his community. With a deep breath, he turned to the next customer, a young boy grinning up at him from the chair. "All right, little man," Jamal said, forcing a smile. "Let's get you looking sharp." And just like that, the shop moved forward, the weight of the moment fading into the background, leaving only the sound of clippers and the quiet strength of those who refused to be broken.